If a man is considered guilty for recording a song-by-song lyrical deep dive into Prince's musical catalog, give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we'll be talking about Electric Chair from the Batman album. And joining me on this journey is Karen Shedrick. Hello again, Karen.
Hi, Jason. Good to talk to you again.
Good to have you back. We last discussed Starfish and Coffee from Sign of the Times. Very lighthearted, kind of fun, bubbly pop song. But now we're talking about Electric Chair, which is, I would say, quite a different sounding song from Starfish and Coffee. This is very guitar, rock-driven song. It has a very late 80s guitar sound. Like the guitar sound that Prince uses in this song is very similar to songs that he was recording around this time, like the original Raven to the Joy Fantastic. To me, sounds a lot like this song from a guitar standpoint, but it's off of, the massive Batman project. So do you have any specific Batman memories or a Batman moment you wanted to share? Like, where were you and what were you doing when the Batman soundtrack was released, and what did you think about it?
I thought it was incredible. I was, of course, excited about the movie. And I was so happy for Prince that he had this opportunity to do a music soundtrack. Everybody was into the Batman movies. So I was really happy for him in this moment. And I was definitely looking forward to this album. I didn't know what to expect because it is a soundtrack. So I wasn't sure how he would do it. So I was very interested to know, what the songs would sound like in relation to the movie. So I was definitely excited about this album.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, so was I. I was very interested in it. I liked the idea of Prince doing something for a film again, because he had a lot of success with Purple Rain. And while Under the Cherry Moon wasn't a commercial success, the album Parade did quite well and had great songs on it. So it's like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of like Prince's wheelhouse. He's good at making songs with movies in mind, or with film scripts in mind, and so like a lot of this album was written with the Batman movie in mind. Electric Chair, though, isn't one of those songs, which is interesting. So Electric Chair ended up not being a single released from the album, but it was a B-side to The Future, which was the first song off the album. However, The Future was only a single in Europe, so we never got The Future / Electric Chair here in the United States. And like The Future, there was also a remix by William Orbit of Electric Chair included on like the 12-inch version of this European single. So people can check that out. You can go find that on YouTube or other places, I'm sure. It's not officially released by the Prince estate as of this recording, but it's like one of those things, like if there was ever a Batman deluxe edition or something like that, I'm sure this would be included there. But this song was recorded in June of 1988, according to Prince Vault. So that predates Prince's participation in the Batman soundtrack. So this is before he was kind of commissioned to write songs and record this album. So this is a song that predates the Batman project. So what that means is, as you know, and I know, and hopefully the listeners either already know or about to know, every song on this album is attributed to a character from the film. So like The Future was, being sung from the perspective of Batman. Electric Chair is being sung from the perspective of the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson in the film. But, of course, when he wrote the song, he didn't know that. So he kind of had to retrofit this song to match like the ideas and tones and themes of the Batman project. And I think it works. I mean, yeah, so as we get through the lyrics, we'll kind of understand this song is, is a song that's seemingly about, an attraction between two people and how their attraction and their love and their lust is so overwhelming and overpowering that it, can be considered dangerous. And utilizing that imagery and that metaphor to talk about a relationship where, like in the movie, of course, the Joker is more like criminally focused. I mean, yeah, he does have lustful thoughts as well, but most of his actions are driven by anger and resentment and desire for power. Those kind of criminal activities, not so much of the romantic or sexual variety. So there had to be a little bit of a suspension of belief here to make this song sound like it's coming from the Joker, but knowing that just the name of the song and how Prince performs it, I think it works as a Joker song. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Karen, before we get started on the lyrics?
Well, to hear the song, it does sound very sinister, kind of dark, sexy. So I can definitely visualize the Joker in that scenario. The sinister, dark, scenario to me that the song sounds like. I can visualize, like a dark club in Gotham City, kind of crazy. So I can see the influence of the Joker in this song. But like most people, I think, because of the lyrics, you think about, like you said, you mentioned a moment ago, two people connecting, and deciding if they want to do the deed, and the criminal aspect of kind of giving in to your, emotions and your sexual emotions towards someone else. So I can kind of see both in this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the movie, the Joker gets what he wants using intimidation and fear and threat of violence. Like, he has the scene. So he has a girlfriend in the film played by Jerry Hall, who he then disfigures later on, to make her look more like him. And so, so just imagining like Jack Nicholson's the Joker in the shoes of Prince in this song, it's hard to imagine that, because he doesn't seduce women in this song in the same way that maybe somebody more sane and less crazy looking would do. So they use different tactics to get what they want from women in the movie and in the song. But yeah, at the end of the day, you just kind of have to like let it go and just understand maybe this is just how the character of the Joker would have thought of a person who he was really attracted to, and what his thoughts were, and how evil maybe his mind works, because this song does get a little bit into speaking about the thoughts of lust and how that relates back to sin and what the Bible says about lustful thoughts. So I want to get into that a little bit too, but yeah, that's my overall thought on the song. I like it. I think it's a nice rockin' song. As a Batman song, you kind of, like I said, you have to just let go of the notion that this is actually being sung by the Joker, maybe to enjoy it more. Or even if you do, you can think of it being the Joker, maybe as more of a younger man, or somebody who hasn't quite completely turned to the dark side yet, like he does in the film. He hasn't completely turned insane, so that's how I think of it, at least. And then going back just to the sound of it again, like, it struck me when listening to it and going back to when it was recorded. So around this time, this is already after Lovesexy had been released, and he was kind of, because Prince was always creating music, and he was already moving on to ideas for his next project, which was supposed to be Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic. That was going to be the next album after Lovesexy. And he was recording a bunch of songs there in the summer of '88 into fall of '88. Songs that, sometimes we heard, like Pink Cashmere, Other songs that ended up getting recorded, like he repurposed for other artists, like Sticky Wicked became Times Squared, which was off of Eric Leeds' album. God is Alive ended up being recorded by Mavis Staples. So there's, another song, If I Had a Harem, never officially got released, but he recorded it or played it live during the Love Sexy tour. And this song, to me, I think probably would have fit quite well onto the Rave album if it was released in '89 instead of Batman. But when he was trying to like, okay, that's not a thing now. Now I'm going to do this Batman project. Which of these songs can I, take move forward into this project? What makes sense? A song like Pink Cashmere or God is Alive, he probably didn't have a place for it on a Batman soundtrack. But Electric Chair, because of its tone, and as you mentioned, it's kind of sounds dark. It has somewhat dark lyrics, a dark chorus, and the whole movie Batman has a dark theme to it. There's a lot of darkness. Most of it's filmed at night. A lot of the scenes are very dark looking. That was just the imagery the movie presented. And I mean, it's the Dark Knight after all, so that's Batman. So the song made sense to move on and move forward. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, Karen, have you ever seen the Saturday Night Live performance of this song that Prince did in September of '89?
Oh my goodness, yes, I have. I actually saw it when it happened, and I've seen it, multiple times on YouTube since then. That is one of my most favorite performances by him. And I was going to mention that because that sealed it for me as far as this being my favorite song on the Batman soundtrack. I think it was overshadowed by like Party Man, Scandalous. They were the more popular ones, but this one was my favorite. And when I saw him perform it, that was it for me. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, it was a great performance. And I just wish that this song had had more airtime. But yeah, I did see that. Love it.
Yeah, he didn't really play the song live much. So
Yeah.
That Saturday Night Live performance is pretty unique for that. I believe, unless somebody can prove otherwise, I believe it's the only time he played it in its entirety. Like not just like as a little bits of it or an interpolation of it, but like from front to back, the whole song, every single verse, everything, the screams at the end. I think that Saturday Night Live performance was the only time he did it like that.
I think so too. I don't recall him doing it the entire song like that. I don't either.
Yeah. And it's interesting also because this wasn't like a regular Saturday Night Live airing. It was, I believe, during like its 15th anniversary special. So there was like a special performance, special show that might have aired during prime time instead of its normal late night slot. I don't remember it at the time, so I don't have any direct memories to watching it when it happened. I don't know if I even watched that special. I just don't know. That was too long ago. Don't remember. But what's kind of cool about that performance is it does introduce a couple of future long-term band members. Michael Bland was on drums, replacing Sheila E. So this was, like I said, September of '89. So Sheila was no longer part of the band, and Michael B. now on drums, and he would be on drums for quite some time in Prince's band. So first performance by him with Prince, live performance that is. And then we also had Candy Dulfer on sax. So she replaced Eric Leeds, who was part of the Love Sexy tour on sax. So some tweaks to his band at the time, and they would go on to continue to perform with Prince for many years to come. Okay, so then as we start looking at the song itself and the lyrics that go along with it, the song starts off, with guitar, because again, this is a very guitar-driven song, and it has the kind of this little quirky bass line. I don't know if it's a bass line, but it sounds like a bass line. Dun, 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 dun. And then the guitar goes in the background and it does its thing. But then the first verse of the song, he says, I saw your friend first. That's who I danced with. All the time I was watching you. The music rocked us. Our eyes locked thus, making us see a trippy picture shoot. All right, so with this first verse, it seems to be setting the scene of taking place in some sort of party or a club or bar or something like that where there's dancing going on, music and dancing. And I get the sense that Prince has started dancing with somebody. Maybe these two women were there at the club together, and for whatever reason, he started dancing with one of them. But the whole time, he's saying that he's watching her friend because he says, "I saw your friend first." So maybe it was just like luck of the draw, like she was the first person he saw that he was somewhat interested in. So he started dancing with her, but then he realized, oh wow, no, your friend is actually who I'm really attracted to, because he was watching this woman the whole time he was dancing with her friend. So, ouch, I guess for the friend, but their eyes locked, and that's kind of he's painting a picture, I guess, to me, of just the situation in a club or on the dance floor. Do you see anything different than that, Karen?
That's exactly what I saw. I like that he got into it straight away, what was happening. And the part making us see a trippy picture shoe, I thought that was cute. And the way he did a play on that word show or shoe, I thought that was cute and that was different. And I guess I want to get your take on it, because I wasn't kind of clear on what he meant by when they locked eyes, it looked like a trippy picture shoe. I mean, is that because when he saw her, he saw some kind of image of her that made it seem like a picture show? I wasn't sure what he was saying in that instance, but
yeah.
The whole thing with their eyes locking while he was dancing with her friend, I thought that was classic. Does that happen?
Yeah. Everything up until that last line, I saw your friend first, that's who I danced with, all the time I was watching you, the music rocked us, our eyes locked. Okay, so that part is very straightforward, right? Like, I think there's no real debate about what's going on here. But then he adds, our eyes locked, thus making us see a trippy picture shoe. And yes, a trippy picture shoe, he, instead of saying show, I think, to your point, he just said shoe because it had to rhyme with you. Mm-hmm. Like, he just needed it to rhyme. So he just tried to come up with a clever way of still saying the same thing but making it rhyme. So he turned show into shoe. But what does that mean? Yes, that is a very good question. So making us see a trippy picture show. So I don't know, maybe like their eyes were so locked onto each other, and maybe there was some sort of extreme lust all of a sudden that they were both driven by, that clouded their vision, made them maybe see in the future what potential sexual encounter might be like between the two of them. I'm reaching here because I really don't know either, but this is the only things I can maybe think of, or we're saying like it's almost like being on drugs.
Or in a movie, I guess.
Yeah, in a movie, sure. It could be like being in a movie and you're kind of stepping outside your body for a minute and looking at yourself as if you're in a movie. That certainly could be it too. So, but whenever I hear the word trippy, for some reason my mind goes to, like, I don't know, drug-induced visions or something along those lines. So, yeah, I mean, any or all of those could potentially be what he's trying to say here. So, guess we'll just leave it open to interpretation as it was probably intended.
Right.
Okay, so then the chorus is cool because I just like how it's delivered, because he kind of starts it with a slower, stuttery delivery. If a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, then give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. Oh. So if a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, that's like the key, like one of the key lines of the chorus, because this kind of points back to what I was alluding to a little bit in the opening discussion about having lustful thoughts, or because in this mind, because you could say, yes, if a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, you could apply that to anything, like I'm thinking about killing you, or I'm thinking about robbing you, or I'm thinking about doing something else that is illegal or sinful. But with the context of the first verse in mind, you get the impression that he's thinking lustful thoughts, that he's thinking sexual thoughts, that he's thinking of things like all the nasty things that he's going to do to her, with her, when they get alone, right? I mean, that's kind of where my head goes with these lines of this chorus. What do you think about that, or do you have a different interpretation?
I'm on the same page. Like, he's dancing with her friend, but he's already thinking about what he wants to do with her, and he knows it's sinful or criminal, and he's already guilty. So give me the electric chair because I'm already guilty. So I completely agree with you in that.
Yeah, he's already guilty of basically doing anything and everything under the sun with this person. And so he's like, yep, lock me up, throw away the key, because
right.
if you're going to say that I'm guilty for sin just by thinking about what I want to do with her, then yeah, I'm absolutely guilty. And what this points back to, and I can't take credit for it again because I'm not that well versed in the Bible, but I use Genius Lyrics a lot. And one thing I like about Genius Lyrics, the website, is that it allows people to provide annotations and comments about lyrics. And so somebody that goes by RDub, shout out to RDub if you're listening, RDub on Genius Lyrics highlighted verse in the Bible from Matthew chapter 5. This is like verses 21 through 30. It talks about adultery. And so what it says in the Bible about adultery is that if you have lust in your heart, then you're already committing a sin. So the Bible doesn't take it like, yeah, you can think thoughts and that's okay as long as you don't act on it. And the Bible takes it, completely a different direction. Like, you can't even think about, committing adultery or having sexual intercourse with somebody that you're not in a committed relationship with. That in and of itself is a sin. And so Prince, being, because this is written right after Lovesexy, so he's still feeling spiritual and having, I don't think he's completely abandoned his philosophies around Lovesexy and spirituality in the 6 short months after he recorded most of the album and the recording of this song. So this kind of speaks to like the act of committing adultery in your mind, or the act of committing a sin just in your mind, and how that is still maybe considered, well, not maybe, definitely considered a sin according to the Bible. And I think that's kind of key. And I don't think I would have picked up on that. I mean, I always knew that there was somewhere in the Bible that it was considered a sin to think lustful thoughts or have lustful thoughts for, somebody else that you weren't committed to. I just couldn't cite, exactly where that would be in the Bible. So I'm glad that RDub pointed it out so I could reiterate it here.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, do you have any comments about the whole adultery angle and lustful thoughts in your mind and how that relates to this song, Karen?
Well, the Bible talks many times about thoughts. I think there's one in Proverbs, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, something like that. So I can definitely understand why Prince may have offhanded referenced the Bible in that verse, because, he did come from, Seventh-day Adventist, Pentecostal type background. So he probably was familiar with that anyway. So I could definitely see where that would come from in his mind in association with the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all have, I shouldn't say we all, but most of us have thoughts sometimes that don't always align with our beliefs or our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like we think things, but we either know better, know not to act on them, or just dismiss them as just thoughts. I mean, our brains are very complex. It's a very complex organ. So to say like somebody can never have a thought that doesn't line up with their beliefs or their actions is really difficult and unrealistic, in my opinion. So, but then again, I guess that's the whole concept around, asking for forgiveness for our sins. And I grew up Catholic, so I have very distinct and vivid memories that go back to when I would have to confess my sins.
Mm-hmm.
And I, speaking about this from 30, 40 years later, but, a lot of times I would cop out and use the whole I had impure thoughts or something like that when I had to confess my sins, because like, duh, of course I did. I was a teenage boy. Like,
right.
What teenage boy doesn't?
Exactly.
And it was an easy sin to ask for forgiveness of, because again, it's not, I think most rational adults would be like, okay, yeah, I get it. You're forgiven. And let's say your prayers and move on. It's not like I confessed that I acted on any of them or that I did anything criminal, because again, thoughts in your mind are not criminal, at least not today. And that's, I think there's been some sci-fi movies out there that have kind of touched a little bit on like the thought police and trying to figure out who's going to be the next criminal based off of what things that people can pull out of their brains, like ideas and thoughts that they had in their brains, and before they put them into action. And it's a fascinating idea, a fascinating concept. Like, can you prevent crime, like real actual crime, by tracking what people are thinking about so you can stop the activity before it occurs? And yeah, that there's been, like I said, science fiction movies and film, or movies and books written about this type of police activity, and I do find it fascinating because it's a very tricky subject, because a lot of times our brains are sanctuaries, like where we can be alone with our thoughts and think things and work through them ourselves in our own time and in our own way, and try to figure out whether or not what our actions are going to be as a result of this thought process that we have in our head. So Prince going this direction with the chorus, if a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, give me an electric chair from all my future crimes. He's basically saying, like, if you're going to look inside my brain, you're going to find stuff that is is going to be considered either criminal or subversive or too intense for mainstream public. I guess is my nice way of saying it. Okay, so anyway, so that's those are my thoughts about the chorus. I think I just really wanted to call out the kind of the religious angle about it, even though the song doesn't come across as religious, but I think knowing where Prince was in his life and how important his spirituality was at the time, this chorus makes a lot more sense, because I'm sure in real life he was still, as a human being, he was still struggling with his with the two sides of himself, the sacred and the profane, and he was still, again, I think, struggling a little bit with that, knowing that this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I've said I'm going to do, but I can't help the thoughts that I have sometimes. And
yeah,
I'm not going to apologize for it. So I'm just going to sing a song about it.
Into them and accept the crime.
Yep. Yep. I'm going to accept my punishment. And in this case, it's the electric chair. All right. So then moving on to the second verse. The second verse is, You whispered something, it took my mind out, like a G major with an E in the bass. Your face looked so good, I wanted to touch your mouth. My brain is jacking all over the place. So one word that I took out, and you can add it or take it out either way, but when he says, you whispered something, it took my mind out like a G major with an E in the bass, you also hear him say G flat in the background. He doesn't say a G flat major. You have G flat with an E in the bass, or you have G major with an E in the bass, because it's two different Prince voices, one in the forefront, one in the background. If you just read the lyrics on Genius, it just says G flat major, and I'm like, well, that's not really what he says though. So I wanted to just kind of call that out. With that said, with the second verse, Karen, what do you want to comment about here?
Well, the whole G major with the E in the bass I thought was ingenious, and she whispered something. So I'm thinking that metaphorically you could say, well, whatever she said was like music to his ears, basically, because he compared it to a musical note or a musical chord or whatever it is. I thought that was really unique. Or you could say, it sounded like that, literally, like that chord or that musical note. So either way, you could kind of play on that as to what that meant. And, my brain is jacking all over the place again, ingenious, because, he's thinking sexual thoughts, which is turning him on and could be, considered orgasmic in a sense. So his brain is literally ejaculating. I just thought that was ingenious that he would, put it that way, that I can literally, have an orgasm in my mind about you and what you're whispering and how I feel about you in this moment. I thought that was really unique.
Yeah, no, you totally covered exactly everything I was thinking or had written down in my notes. That line, you whispered something, it took my mind out like a G major with an E in the bass. So I'm not a musician, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what G major with an E in the bass sounds like. Somebody would have to play it for me. I don't have that level of musical skill where I can just imagine what that sounds like and be like, cool. But I think I think it still works to your point, because he's either basically saying like, it's so like a music, as this is Prince as a musician writing the song, like a non-musician, like a poet. I don't know if a poet without a musical background could come up with a line like this, because he's essentially saying like, I agree with you. Like he's saying that this sounds like music to my ears, or maybe a specific sound or a specific note, and only that person and other maybe musicians know what that note sounds like, and the rest of us just have to take their word for it. I guess. Right. But I think, yeah, it still gets the point across that whatever she whispered really intrigued him, turned him on, whatever you want to call it. Sounded good. Like probably a G major with the E in the bass sounds good. Maybe it's a very pleasant sound. Maybe it's an erotic sound. I don't know. Your face looks so good and I wanted to touch your mouth. Okay. But then, yeah, the brain is jacking all over the place. I had the exact same notes. It sounds like he's having a brain orgasm. And Prince isn't going to just say my brain had an orgasm. So he's going to use like really kind of crude, vivid imagery about ejaculation, because that's like the Prince way, especially around this time, of really making something sound crude, but actually it's pretty clever. It's actually pretty clever, in spite of its almost immature sounding verbiage that he uses. It's actually more clever than you might think, based off of using the word jacking all over the place. and what this does is this emphasizes again the mental over the physical. And this is something that Prince really hones in on throughout his career, is how good sex starts with connections and in the mind and in the brain. And it isn't just the physical that makes sex amazing, it's also the mental. And exactly. Here you're saying my mental state right now is so aroused, I'm basically ejaculating all over the place. And that's how turned on I am. So he's very consistent in that messaging that mental is more important than the physical when it comes to connections and good relationships and great sex. Anything else with the second verse you wanted to touch on? I mean, the two big things we already kind of mentioned, but anything else?
Just the connection between him and this girl, looking at her face, wanting to touch her mouth. I mean, he was really connected to her physically and mentally. Just a very sexual, and all of this is, I'm assuming, still on the dance floor, I guess. So it's like, okay, there's a lot of stimulation going on at the club, and I'm saying club, he didn't even say club. It could be at a concert. I mean, it could be anywhere where music is playing.
Yep.
But I guess because of the way the song sounds, it sounds like it would be in a club to me. But yeah, just the connection between the two of them. It's like nobody else is around. It's just him and her in this moment. That's the only person he sees is her. So it's very effective in this song.
Yeah, her friend is out of the picture, obviously.
Oh yeah.
He's already ditched her. Like, they had their dance to their one song, and he's like, "Excuse me, I'm gonna go talk to your friend now." And now her friend's probably just like sitting back by the bar waiting for somebody else, or just looking at him like, "Screw you, man."
Yeah, her friend too. It's like, what are you doing whispering in his ear or whispering to him? And I just got through dancing with him. What are you doing?
Hopefully she's cool with it.
Yeah.
And they're still friends at the end of the day.
Right.
Okay, so then the chorus again is the same. If a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, then give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. Oh. All right, so then the third verse, after a little bit of a musical interlude, we get the third verse. Let's take a drive, love, so we can make up our minds, love, to commit the crimes of passion that sets us free. Me loving you, you loving me. And then there's a little bit of a little more music, and then he says the electric chair. So again, like a lot of Prince songs, third verse's structure is a bit different. It's sung differently than the previous two verses, but the lyrics here, it just keeps moving the kind of like the story of the song keeps moving forward. So now, verse 1, he sees her and they've got their eyes on each other, but they haven't really connected. Verse 2, now they're connecting, probably in the same location that they met. Now verse 3, they might not have left yet. They're still potentially in wherever it is that they were in, but they're talking about leaving, it sounds like. Or at least he's trying to convince her to leave. Let's take a drive so we can make up our minds to commit the crimes of passion that set us free. And like the commit the crimes of passion that set us free is interesting because the whole idea of the chorus is like he's committing a crime in his mind that's going to, result in the electric chair because it's so, it's so lustful, so wrong. But he's okay with that. He's saying, I want to commit this crime of passion because it's ultimately going to set us free, meaning like maybe set us free from the shackles of lust and finally consummate what we've been talking about or what we've been feeling and expressing through our minds, through our body movements. And let's do this thing. Let's do it so that we can be free of all of this lustful ideas, because again, it's the thoughts that are going to get him sent to the electric chair, not the actions. So it's almost coming across like he wants to get past that, so that way he can stop having these thoughts that are sinful. And maybe what else do you see about this third verse or want to comment about this third verse, Karen?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I mean, he's trying to, have them collectively decide to do the deed, and just commit to the passion that they're feeling. And, if it's the the line that sets us free, I'm thinking he feels like, well, even though he keeps talking about guilty in the song, I feel like he's saying, let's just free ourselves from the idea of this being criminal and just, go with the passion and go with our feelings, because that will set us free and will actually not feel guilty in a sense. But, that could be kind of interpreted a different way, I guess, because he's still saying, let's commit this crime. But he's saying that if we commit the crime, it's going to set us free. So that kind of, I guess it's kind of two different ways of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little, I would say that they're a little bit in conflict with each other. Like his words make it still sound like he feels a little bit of guilt for these thoughts that he has about this woman, the things that he wants to do with her, just everything about this encounter. He's still having some sort of at least internal conflict about it, for him to call it a crime in his mind, and also potentially a crime of passion, meaning like it's not just in his mind, like it's still a crime in theory. I mean, not a literal crime that he's going to be arrested for, but maybe a crime against nature, or a crime against God, or who knows. And that's kind of like the brilliance of this song, is he never explicitly states what it is in his mind that is going to get in the electric chair, or what this crime is that's going to be so bad that once they do it, once they consummate it, he could potentially be committing a criminal act. He never says that, so you have to use your imagination. And yeah, he's using hyperbole, like, okay, having sex with somebody isn't a crime as long as it's consensual. So why are you going on about this being such a big deal? Like, he's almost making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. Or you could use your imagination to think, oh my God, what are they going to do? Like,
that's true.
Like, what does he have planned for her? And it kind of works that way too. Like, ooh, Prince has got such a dirty mind, because that's of course one of his albums, and the fans of him and people who like that aspect of him can really take this and start applying their own dirty minds to it. Oh, I bet you Prince is going to do this, or I bet he's got this planned for her. Oh, that he's being all nasty without being nasty, and it's all implied. It's all implied nastiness. It's like, I'm going to be such a bad boy. You're going to have to give me the electric chair. And I like that, because he's still being clever about it, not being explicit at all. There's nothing explicit about this song. It's all implied, and it's all, kind of placed back on us as the listeners to how we interpret these thoughts that he has and what he's planning to do with her that is so criminal, I guess. And that's kind of what makes it brilliant too.
It does.
And it's a perfect way to incorporate kind of like a sexy rock number without, alienating maybe some newer audience, because this is Batman. There's going to be some younger listeners to this soundtrack. Maybe I guess it just depends on, like, if the person's so young that their parents had to buy it, maybe they would see Prince on it and like, I don't know. This is the guy who was getting in trouble with the PMRC a couple years ago. I'm not sure I want to buy this Prince album for my 8-year-old. But then again, there was, no warning of explicit lyrics, or if they were really paying attention, like, oh, Prince is getting spiritual now, although the nudity on the cover of Love Sexy might have caused them to pause. But no, the album still sold really well. So I think at the end of the day, there was still plenty of younger kids that listened to this album, and the concepts of electric chair probably completely went over their head, and they were just thinking like, oh, the Joker is such a bad man. Yeah, he's going to get the electric chair for all of his evil thoughts and the crimes that he wants to commit in his brain. And again, that completely works. It completely works for this soundtrack and for this song as a Joker song. And if you eliminate the whole Batman concept Joker concept, it totally works as just a a sexy rock number 2 without any Batman context at all around it.
Yeah, I do agree that, for a kid reading this, they would probably think of it in terms of the Joker right away because it's on the Batman soundtrack. And I was going to ask, so I couldn't remember, was there an advisory sticker on this album or not? I couldn't remember.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Completely free of parental advisory. He got one on the next one for Graffiti Bridge, which Graffiti Bridge doesn't even have that much explicit lyrics in it. I'm trying to even remember why there's explicit lyric sticker on Graffiti Bridge, but there is, because he changed We Can Fuck to We Can Funk for the album anyway, so it's like that would have been the easy reason why they would be if it was still the original We Can Fuck, but it's not. It's We Can Funk. So I don't know if it was more like because the song still is so, I don't know, we're going off on a tangent here, but I don't know if it's because the song We Can Funk is so rooted in sexuality that they thought that it was too close to being the F word that that the game slapped the sticker.
It's more of a spiritual album.
I don't know. Weird. I think there was some overzealous stickering going on for that record because, hey, guess what album didn't get an explicit lyric sticker? Purple Rain didn't get one. 1999 didn't get one. And I know those predate it, so that's why. But even future copies, like once the explicit lyrics parental advisory kind of warning labels started coming out, future copies, printed copies of those albums could have been slapped with it. Maybe not the original ones, but they could have went backwards and started applying them after the fact, but they never did. Anyway, yeah, no, this album was pretty clean overall from that perspective, and that I'm sure that was by design to match the intended consumer base. The whole me loving you, you loving me, this, loving can be used as a synonym for sex too. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean like, oh, we're in love now, because again, that's a tough sell that they're in love after one night of kind of lustful thoughts and dancing. So I kind of don't necessarily think of that meaning like these two people are in love. I just think of it more like me loving you, you loving me, more like the loving in the context of it being sexually based.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me though. Somebody could think of it like, oh wow, they're in love.
No, sure. Come on, they just met. Let's...
I know. Yes. The realist in me is like, no, he's just using loving to replace sex.
Right.
All right. So then with the fourth verse is almost identical to the first verse. I saw your friend first. That's who I danced with. All the time I was watching you. The music rocked us. That's identical. But it's this next line. Instead of saying our eyes locked thus, he says our lives shocked us. So that's different. But he still then finishes it with making us see a trippy picture shoe. I've got to have it, and he says that later. So he's expressing a little bit more of that lustfulness and that extreme desire. But our lives shocked us, replacing our eyes locked thus. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about the differences of that or why he chose to turn it different or make a different add a different statement here, different line. Don't know if it means anything. Our lives shocked us. I honestly don't know what that means, and I don't know if you have any thoughts either.
Well, the fact that he repeated it, it's almost like I'm thinking he's looking back on that night, what went down. And maybe this is more reflective after the fact. Our lives shocked us. I don't know what it means either, unless like I said, he's thinking about, in retrospect, what happened afterwards, maybe. Like he's looking back on that night when he met her. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
all about that interpretation because he does talk again. He's talking about in the past tense. I mean, he uses past tense in the first verse too. So I
Right.
danced with past tense. The music rock does past tense. Our life shock does past tense. So it does kind of give you the impression that this is coming from the perspective of a person who's reflecting on the experience. So yeah, maybe to your point, saying like a little bit shocked at how it all went down that night. So
Yeah.
I like that interpretation about as anything that I've could think of myself. So thanks, thanks for adding that. Yeah, but then that's basically all the verses because then we get the chorus again. The chorus is the same, and but you can't ignore the outro because this is when you get some of Prince's best screams, or
Hmm.
at least best Batman era screams, if nothing else. You know I'm guilty for all my future crimes, and he screams guilty again for all my future crimes. And if you don't really love me, he screams that as well, then give me the electric chair. So, yeah, so he's just the whole I'm guilty part is cool. I've always really liked him screaming out that he's guilty, just to emphasize that and, you know, how it plays back into the themes of the song about being guilty. The Joker's guilty. He's guilty of a lot of crimes. Prince, as this if it's just a Prince song, he's expressing guilt for all of these lustful thoughts. He's almost like he's purging himself of these sinful thoughts that he's been having, and you know, I would assume continue to have throughout his life, which has probably been always a bit of his struggle. I think he's expressed this in song before, where you know he's a very spiritual man and you know values his religion, but he's also a very lustful man and sexual in nature. And I don't think it was just something that he did for shock value. Yeah, a song like Sister is for shock value and Head is for shock value, but
Hmm.
you don't consistently write songs with a heavy sexual focus throughout your career without there being some truthfulness to it, I don't think. So, by all accounts, I think like this is still just Prince going past the love sexy era, but still understanding like I'm not a perfect person. Nobody is. These are some of my struggles, and I'm gonna make a cool rock song about it. So yeah, I mean, do you like the outro, Karen?
I do. I'm like you. I love a Prince scream anytime, any day. And I feel like when he screamed guilty, I almost thought of it like a judgment, like in court. You're guilty because he emphasized, screamed it. I could almost see like a judgment, like a judge screaming guilty at somebody. So yeah, I do think that it ties into the whole theme of the song, and he just wanted to emphasize that again. You know, I've done the deed, so I'm guilty. Give me the electric chair because I gave in to the crimes of passion. Throw the book at me because it's a done deal. So yeah, but I did love the scream. It's classic.
He's telling his lawyer at this point, I'm gonna plead guilty, and you know we're not gonna tie up the court system any longer. Yeah, you know I'm gonna accept whatever fate I get from this, you know, from this admission of guilt, and we'll see where that goes. He's expecting the electric chair. That's how bad it is. He's expecting the electric chair. Um, Give me the electric chair. Wouldn't that be kind of ironic? Like he's thinking like all of his crimes and all of his future crimes are so bad, he's going to get the electric chair, and they're like, yeah, we're going to send you to the pokey for a couple weeks, and they were. Don't worry, Prince. They weren't really that bad, dude. You're not going to get the electric chair over these thoughts in your mind, but. No, but he definitely thinks that it's worthy of electric chair. So I guess we have to believe him since they're his thoughts, not ours.
Right, and we don't know what those thoughts are. Like you said, it could be anything. So,
Yep. Yep.
uh,
All right. But yeah, that's Electric Chair. Great song. I've always enjoyed the song. Performed live on Saturday Night Live was amazing, and I wish again there were more performances of this song in its entirety, because it does have a lot of great guitar in it. The screams at the end, the chorus is really fun and easy to sing along to, and like I said, the way he sings it isn't just in a typical manner. So it's kind of once you kind of figure out his flow, you can sing along with it, and it kind of makes you feel like you've got some skill too, because you can follow along with Prince as he's singing the chorus. Second track off the album, so like right after The Future, I think we've got two really strong songs for the Batman project. Two of my favorite songs off the album, back to back, right there to lead it off. So that's my overall thoughts on Electric Chair. Do you have any final thoughts of yourself, Karen, about the song?
Again, it's my favorite on the album. And why am I thinking, and I could be wrong, that he said this whole "if a man is guilty for what goes on in his mind"? Didn't he say that in another song on this soundtrack?
I believe. Oh,
I thought he did. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking he said it in another song.
Yeah, is it part of Bat Dance?
Maybe. Maybe you can look it up and add it because I'm thinking he did.
Yeah, it's definitely part of Bat Dance. Like, because Bat Dance takes a lot of samples and even samples songs that were unreleased at the time that never did get released. But no, he does include that chorus, or at least that line of the chorus. If a man is guilty for what goes on in his mind, give me electric chair for all my future crimes. Yeah, that's in Bat Dance. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And then too, back to the SNL performance. Wasn't Levi on there too?
Probably, but Levi had been a part of the band.
Yeah.
The Love Sexy band. Yeah. Yep. So I still had Levi.
Too. Yeah.
Yep. He brought Levi with him, or he continued on with Prince's band after Love Sexy.
Yeah. Overall, I think the Batman album was a good album. A lot of people, it's not their favorite, but I think it was a very good soundtrack for the movie. I thought he did a good job on it overall.
Cool. Yeah, so do I. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Well, thanks, Karen, for joining me on this episode. I'm glad that you were able to talk to me about Electric Chair, your favorite song from the record. That's always nice when that lines out like that. So, again, thanks for being on the show again, Karen. Much appreciated.
You're welcome, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. You're always welcome back on the show. So I wanted to give a shout out to Theo from the Press Rewind Discord. He is my very first patron. So I do have a Patreon for the show. I don't push it ever, really, but I do have links to it on my pressrewind.net website where I house the episodes. And just very thankful to you, Theo. Much appreciated for being a supporter of the show and getting the word out whenever you can. And thanks to Karen and thanks to all the listeners. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show, Press Rewind Pod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And as I mentioned, there's a Press Rewind Discord where we try to have fun with Prince's music and discussions around songs, albums. We do little monthly drafts now starting this year where we pick 4 random albums and then start drafting songs off of it as if it was like an NFL draft where, what's going to be the number 1 overall pick from these 4 albums. It's kind of fun. And then we create playlists from our selections. So again, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. And until next time, goodbye.